Okay. Now, for the stakeholder analysis, we need to identify the stakeholders. It's very important again that we need to have a very clear understanding of the stakeholders, who controls change management, who will take the decisions, who controls the resources, who has the specialist skills the project needs, who has influence. Now, this is very important. While we are doing a stakeholder analysis, there might be the person who might be a nuisance. There might be a stakeholder who might be a nuisance, but that person might be the most influential in terms of project execution. Earlier we identify that, the better it is for us. Who gets the rewards and benefits? One of the things that is generally neglected, I won't say generally, but yeah, at times it is not taken care of, and the project clear examples that come to my mind is the Narmada Dam project or Singur. You're all aware of the situations that have happened. Now, maybe I'm not naming anybody. I'm not going into the case study, or I'm not getting into the details of the project, the Tata Nano project. But maybe the people who would have suffered the consequences were not taken into consideration. That was the case. So we need to be very clear on who suffers the consequences, who provides the inputs, and who gets the output. That's identifying the stakeholders, classifying the stakeholder positions. Depending on the people, we classify them into groups, the stakeholder names. Third point, very important, who has the ability to the commitment level and everything has been identified, then we do a stakeholder management approach. So what is the approach for each and every stakeholder? That is again being done. Now again, let us get into a very important aspect, especially in our industry. It's HSSC, that's Health, Safety, Security and Environment. Now with HSSC, there are various certifications. For quality, there's an ISO 9001 that's immediately in place. For environmental, it needs to have, we need to have an ISO 14001 certification. For occupational health and safety, there's an OSHA 18001. Then we have ISO 27001, which talks of information security. ISO 27002, it talks of risk. But moreover, it's focused on as a guideline, not as a certification, as an ISO certification. So these are the things. And then there is an integrated management system. So that encompasses this and more of the management system, safety systems. For this, it needs to be very clearly defined in the project execution plan. The HSC compliance, rather the HSSC compliance and the awareness trainings, a training calendar should be there, compliance register should be there. There has to be a proper audits to ensure that there is proper compliance of the health, safety, security and environment. Then some of the things that as part of our responsibility towards the environment and towards health, safety, we monitor the LTI, that's lost time incident. That is whether there was a disruption due to any incident which might have happened. Incident might be an accident, incident might be a death, or incident might be anything which has disrupted work. So we are talking from both perspectives. We are talking from our productivity loss, as well as we are talking of the actual loss of human life, or the things that might be there, and the preventive measures that needs to be taken immediately if they have not been taken care of, and a proper monitoring of why this particular incident happened. Monitoring the paper usage, that's one of the things. usage. So that's again one of the things that should be part of the execution plan. Should be very clear that the awards and recognition should be given to people who are adhering to all these standards in total. So it's very important, and these things, maybe the finer details might not be mentioned in the project execution plan, but it should give an indication that yes, the project execution also talks of the awards and recognitions. The PEP should be very clear on the implementation of HSE requirements set by the owner. So that should be very clear, otherwise we might be going in a different. That we need to develop the culture. It should not be a one-off incident. It should be part of our way of life. Next, we come to the procurement management. Now, for procurement management, we are talking of vendors or the subcontractors. Now, the type of contracts might be an agreement with a subcontractor or vendor or the manufacturer. Might be a fixed price or a lump sum type of contract. So, a lump sum turnkey contract. The risk is all part of the main contractor or the subcontractor or the manufacturer. So we take care of everything, and it's a fixed price within the parameters of time. Time and material, if we do not have the end in mind, or if we do not know the magnitude at the end of the project, then we might use a time and material. It has a very cascading effect on the overall project profitability. So we need to be very careful when we are awarding a contract on the time and material philosophy. Then there is a cost plus fee. So the plus value or the plus component on the cost is predefined. So for every item, the vendor or the manufacturer submits the bills, and he or the vendor puts a particular fee component which is predetermined. Cost plus percentage of cost. So irrespective of whatever is the cost, there is also a percentage of cost. So it might be, we might agree on a 2% or a 10% or a 15%. Again, this might become very harming. Have to listen to this, or might have to follow this. And cost plus fixed fee. So a cost plus fee might be again dependent on the cost plus item, where on the cost of a particular item, whereas a cost plus fixed fee talks of irrespective of whatever is the cost, the fee remains the same. Procurement management. Unrealistic schedule and cost expectations for first of all, there might be a conflict of interest. That is one issue that might come up, or there might be a contract, and there might be a conflict between whatever is the existing contracts and the relationship with a particular vendor. So a particular vendor we might have a bad experience with a particular vendor, but that might be the only vendor. So those are some of the risks which we'll have to take care of during project procurement management, sorry. Then potential delays and impacts on cost and schedule. So that's again one of the things that we need to be very careful while we are making the plan. The final thing, that the risk which we could think of is questionable past performance for vendors. Without going into details, one of the classic examples we might say is the Commonwealth Games that happened in Delhi a few years back. For some of the suppliers who were supplying some of the key exercise or the games equipment, questionable past. Then it talks of the procurement management in the product execution, talks of the multiple suppliers, it talks of the interface, it talks of coordination, and we should always have a performance metrics for procurement activities, because we would not like a procurement a vendor to be used as a one-off incident. We would like to build relationship. We would like to build a particular procurement vendor. We would like to build a particular subcontractor. So this can only be done when we have a proper mechanism to measure the performance. Now the other thing which is very clearly defined, it again comes from the communication, is the responsibility matrix. Clearly it follows the RACI concept: responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Responsible is the person who is actually doing the work to achieve the task. Accountable is the person who's actually checking and approving that the deliverable or the product, the output that has been prepared is up to the mark or adhering to the scope of work clearly defined at the start of the project. Consultant are the people whose opinions are sought, who might maybe a third eye review or some particular expert who may or may not be part of the particular task force. And informed are those people who are just being kept in the loop of things so that nothing is missed out and they don't become the people who might create nuisance at a later stage. Then we talk of progress management. Very clearly, which we talked of, every PEP should have a very well-defined project schedule, should have an S-curve, look ahead plans. We discussed these things at the start of the presentation. Milestone management. Now this is one thing which is more of at a management level or a high level. It's very clearly, there's something called a milestone tracking. Now that's again one of the things that we have been using. So a milestone tracking, instead of going into the nitty-gritty, we track the milestones, and since the milestones are all linked to activities, so the moment there is a slippage or there is some deviation in the milestone from the schedule, we know that there's something wrong. So we get into the detailed analysis and the detailed dissection of a particular schedule. Then for progress management, it's very important to have a proper earned value management system in place. Document management, very clear that we should have a proper numbering procedure which should be part of the project execution plan at the initial stage of the project itself. We should have revision control mechanism in place. Traceability. Now the most important thing which we keep saying to our document controllers is that it's not how you are maintaining, or it's not where you are maintaining the document, it's how easy is the retrievability. If we are able to retrieve a particular document or a particular information immediately, that shows the effectiveness of a particular system. So everything, the document management system should always have the traceability at the back of the mind, that yes, how a particular document can be traced or retrieved by spending minimum time and minimum effort. Because like I said, the documents which will be required, it's like the change management. The documents will only be referred and it will only be required when we don't have time. So it's not required for reference. It's almost 90% of the time it's required for at times where it's crisis or it's very urgent. So if we don't have a proper traceability mechanism in place, that's the beginning of the end. And the proper archival procedure should also be in place. For reporting, it's very clear the frequency of reporting should be very well defined, whether it's a weekly, fortnightly, daily, monthly, what sort of a reporting should be there. The metrics that should be reflected in the reporting, in the report should be very clear, that what are the matrices that are there. Maybe a productivity analysis, a cash flow, invoicing, then the S curves. So what are the metrics that needs to be there in terms of quantifiable items? Balance all can be in a descriptive format. Who is the responsible person for generating? Who is the responsible person for checking? And who are the responsible stakeholders to whom it should go? That's very important. And then the table of contents. At the very beginning of the project, the report should have a very well-defined table of contents. And that should be